You have always taken pride in leaving well. When a job was no longer working, when the environment turned, when the role shrank, when it became clear that the organization had quietly decided your future, there was limited. You did what you were raised to believe was the right thing. You gave notice. You wrote a professional resignation letter. You thanked people sincerely. You left with your dignity intact and your reputation clean, and you believed that was the smart move. It was not. In financial terms, it may have been one of the most costly decisions you ever made without realizing it, because the moment you resigned, a clock stopped. Entitlements that were legally yours disappeared. And somewhere in that building, someone sent a short email with very good news for the company. Your dignity costs you more money than you will ever know. My name is Zara. And today we are going to talk about the severance truth that almost no employee learns until it is far too late to use it. Picture someone, 3 years at a company, 2 solid performance reviews. No formal complaints on record, nothing dramatic. Then, one Tuesday, their manager asks them to come in for a conversation. The room is small, no one else is present. The manager explains that things have not been working and lays 2 options on the table. Resign voluntarily or accept a performance improvement plan, a 30-day structured process with defined targets. The manager uses a specific phrase they call the resignation option, leaving on your own terms. They say it looks better. That person goes back to their desk. They sit with it for 40 minutes. They think about how a PIP on their record might affect the next job search. They think about references. They think about appearances. By the end of the afternoon, they had sent the resignation letter. What they did not see, what they had no way of seeing, was the email their manager sent to HR 11 minutes after the meeting ended. Subject line: voluntary separation confirmed, no package required. HR responded the same hour. The conversation was over before the resignation letter arrived. That person walked out of the building believing they had protected something. They had surrendered everything. They were not offered a choice. They were offered a script, and they delivered it perfectly. There are 4 financial and legal realities of employment separation that most employees never learn, and that companies rely on them not knowing. Mechanism number 1, the resignation forfeiture. When an employee resigns, the legal and financial obligations of the employer reduce to their minimum possible state. Final paycheck. Accrued unused leave in jurisdictions that require the payout, nothing else, no severance, no extended benefits, no negotiation. The employer owes nothing beyond the statutory floor because the employee made a voluntary choice to leave. The law treats that choice as a waiver of everything that involuntary separation would have triggered. This is not a loophole. It is the foundational architecture of employment law. And the company's human resources function understands it precisely, even if the employee sitting across the table does not. A resignation does not protect your dignity. It protects the company's budget. Mechanism number 2, the unemployment cutoff. In nearly every jurisdiction, unemployment benefits require that job loss be involuntary. A redundancy, a layoff, a termination without cause, all of these qualify. A resignation does not. By definition, the employee chose to leave. The state unemployment system treats that choice as disqualifying, regardless of the circumstances that produced it. This means the person who resigned under pressure, who was told the alternative was an unachievable performance plan, who felt they had no real option, is treated by the unemployment system identically to someone who left freely for a better opportunity. The coercion is invisible to the process. The outcome is the same. No benefits, no bridge, no runway. The unemployment system does not ask why you left. It asks whether you chose to. Mechanism number 3, the PIP as architecture. The performance improvement plan is presented as a development tool, a structured opportunity to course correct. A documented pathway back to good standing, it is rarely designed to be completed successfully. In practice, a PIP issued to an employee the organization has already decided to exit is a paper trail, a 30 to 60-day process designed to document failure against targets that were deliberately scoped beyond what the timeline and available resources allow. At the end of the window, the employee is terminated for that reason, which in most organizations means severance is reduced or eliminated, unemployment claims are contested, and the separation record reads performance-based termination. The PIP is not the alternative to resigning. The PIP is the mechanism that makes termination look justified after the resignation option fails. Both paths lead to the same destination. One is simply less expensive for the company than the other. The PIP does not measure your performance. It manufactures a paper trail. Mechanism number 4, the negotiation they never mentioned. Severance is not a fixed number handed down from a policy document. It is a transaction. When a company terminates an employee involuntarily, the severance agreement they present is a starting position, not a final offer. The company is purchasing several things simultaneously: your departure, your silence through a non-disparagement clause, your agreement not to pursue legal claims through a liability release, and your cooperation with a clean transition. Each of those things has value to the organization. And until you sign, you hold them. Most employees believe that questioning a severance offer risks losing it entirely. This belief is almost never accurate. An employee with no agreement in place and no non-disparagement clause is free to discuss the circumstances of their departure publicly, with clients, with competitors, with professional networks. That exposure costs the company more than a revised offer. The math favors paying more to close the transaction cleanly. HR knows this. The employee in the room usually does not. Severance is not what they owe you. It is what you are willing to accept in exchange for what they need from you. Here is what the resignation costs, in concrete terms. For someone earning $65,000 a year with 3 years of tenure, an involuntary separation at a mid-sized organization would typically include 4 to 6 weeks of severance salary, a payout of all accrued unused leave, continuation of health benefits for a defined period, and eligibility for unemployment insurance, which, depending on the jurisdiction and prior earnings, could represent another several $100s per week for up to 6 months. The resignation eliminates all of it, every element, in a single afternoon, and the person who resigned does not discover what they surrendered until weeks later when a former colleague, who chose a different path, mentions casually what their separation package included. The number lands differently than expected, not as information, as the precise cost of not knowing. By then, there is nothing to negotiate. The agreement the company needed from that employee has already been given, for free, in the form of a resignation letter. They paid nothing for what they needed most. You handed it to them and called it professionalism. The conference room conversation is not a courtesy, it is a procurement exercise. The company needs your voluntary departure, and the meeting exists to obtain it at the lowest possible cost. Understanding this does not make the situation less difficult. It makes the next decision significantly less expensive. Here's what to do. Tactical move number 1. Do not respond in the room. When a manager presents the option to resign or accept a performance plan, the correct answer at that moment is neither. Say you need time to consider your options carefully and that you will follow up within a defined number of days. Do not sign anything. Do not confirm anything verbally. Leave the room with no agreement made. This is not obstruction. It is a legitimate and professionally appropriate response to a significant employment decision. The urgency the company creates is designed to prevent you from understanding what you are being asked to give up. Tactical move number 2. Contact an employment attorney before responding. Most employment attorneys offer an initial consultation at low or no cost. Bring your last 2 performance reviews, any documentation of the current situation, and the details of what was offered. The attorney will tell you within one conversation whether the circumstances of your situation create any legal exposure for the company and whether that exposure affects your negotiating position. You do not need to pursue litigation. You need to understand whether the option exists, because that understanding changes the conversation. Tactical move number 3. When the severance offer arrives, treat it as a first draft. Read the full document before responding, not the summary, the full document. Note the non-disparagement scope, the claims release, and any clauses that restrict your next employment. Then respond in writing. Identify 1 or 2 specific, factual reasons your contribution to the organization exceeded the standard tenure formula project's mid-transition, expanded scope, institutional knowledge with active dependencies. Request a revised figure. Keep the tone direct and professional. You do not need to threaten anything. You only need to demonstrate that you understand the transaction you are both in. The company needs the agreement more than they need the number to stay the same. Most people walk into that conference room believing the conversation is about their performance, their future, or their reputation. It is about money. The organization has run a calculation. Your voluntary departure saves them a specific, quantifiable amount. The meeting exists to achieve that outcome. The language around dignity and clean exits and leaving on your own terms is framing. Professional, practiced, and precise framing designed to align your decision with their financial interest. This is not a betrayal, it is a transaction. And the most useful thing anyone in that position can do is understand it as one clearly, without resentment, and before they say a single word. Protecting yourself in these moments does not require aggression. It does not require conflict. It requires only the same quality of information the company already has. You were never meant to know what your resignation was worth to them. Now you do. If this video named something that changed how you see a situation you have already lived, share it with someone who is in one right now. Subscribe to Zara versus the Workplace. The next video goes further.